Hello everyone, I'm Rishi Persad and welcome back to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Steve Ryder alongside me on my left, and Donn McClean joins us for a review of all things Cheltenham. This is where we're going to get our teeth stuck into the performances at the Cheltenham Festival this year. But Donn, let's just start with your overall impression of the meeting and how buoyant the mood was, or not perhaps.
Yeah, I thought it was a great meeting, Rishi. There were loads of positives, and like the atmosphere. I mean, that to me was my first take on it was the atmosphere before the Supreme Novices Hurdle, when it was announced they were coming out onto the track and they're off. We had that roar, and like it was there last year, but it was definitely lower key last year. It wasn't as voluminous or as full as it was this year. And then when Lossiemouth won the Champion Hurdle, a couple of races in, they were singing "Ole Ole" in the betting ring in the stands. Fields were full. I thought that the Irish versus British competition was really good down to the wire, 15-13, which is, that's, people say we all appreciate good national hunt horses. It doesn't matter where they're trained, and a 4-1 winner is a 4-1 winner regardless of who trains it. But it is a thing. I think it definitely is a thing, and it's monitored, and you want the competition. And I thought there was great competition this year. I thought it was a really good festival.
And Steve, your point of view over the 4 days?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I actually went back and rewatched our show from last year, and the two negatives we highlighted were falling attendances and the starts. Well, we fixed one of those. The attendances were up. Like Donn, I thought the atmosphere around the place was brilliant. The facilities held up, getting a beer, going to the toilet, all the basics that you need to get right, those are definitely improved. The starts haven't, though, have they, Rish?
No, the starts haven't. The ground very much in focus throughout the week, the ground particularly later in the week. But the starts were in focus very early on. And of course, there was that spat between Declan Queally and Nico de Boinville. Yeah,
there was. That got highlighted. They shook hands the following day, wasn't it? In a deal brokered by Davy Russell, fair play to him.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought is right. But yeah, look, the starts, I don't know. We've been talking about starts since, way back when the starts weren't that important. You set off and the horses, go off, and who leads doesn't really matter. It's a 2 mile minimum or 3 mile or 3.5 miles. But now, especially at Cheltenham, the start is so important. It doesn't matter, a 3 mile, 6 furlong race. Yeah. The start is really important. We know that, and everybody knows that now. And Ruby came up with a good solution with the kind of rolling start. How far away from national hunt horses going into stalls? It happens in Japan. Black Star Mountain went out there, won the Nakayama Grand Jump. He went into the stalls. I mean, I'm sure there are many, many negatives about that. And obviously soft ground during the winter is an issue for stalls and other potential solutions as well. But no.
It's unsatisfactory.
Yeah, it's not satisfactory.
It's very unsatisfactory. What did you make about the ground discussion, particularly Willie Mullins's, the veracity of his opposition to what John Pullen had done or not done by Thursday?
Yeah, I have some sympathy with the clerk of the course, to be honest. I mean, he put 4 mils on, there was rain forecast. It'd have been, if they got more than there was expected, then everyone would have been going, oh, come on, it's spring, we should be on good to soft ground. Why have we got soft ground when we're there? I thought he went a bit over the top, was my reading of it. Clearly he wanted to run fat to file, and whether it was his decision or JP's decision to pull out what was an odds-on favourite at the time for the Ryanair chase. I mean, he didn't need to, did he? He still won, the Champion Hurdle, the Champion Chase, and the Gold Cup. But it could have been even more for Willie Mullins.
Yeah. And speaking of Factifile, last year when we did the show, we put up various horses. I put him up for the Gold Cup at 6-1. That never materialised. Steve, you put up Final Demand for the Brand Advice.
Do we have to talk about last year? Really?
I wasn't going to mention your horse, Don, but you get another go this year. That's
Great,
the beauty
that's
of
good,
it.
Yeah.
Final Demand for the Brand Advisory, second, narrowly touched off. Woodoo for the mares, 8-1, the winner. What price did she win at again, by the way?
8 to 11.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Tupi for the Stairs. And you put that up as a 314-1 treble this time last year, and it got down to around 11-1 at one stage, didn't it?
Yeah, it was looking good at one stage.
Yeah.
I think it's still, SP went off sub 20-1, so it was the right bet, just didn't quite come off. We'll try again this year, Rich.
We will try again.
We'll try again, yeah. My one tip last year was Rocky's Diamond, who... I had a few of them early in the season that didn't quite pay off, but yeah, we'll try again this year.
Well, in fairness, I put up so many naps over the last period of the series that didn't even run. Even after they'd been declared, they hadn't run. So, anyway, let's get into racing recap and, of course, focusing entirely on the Cheltenham Festival. Well, we start with the championship races, and on Tuesday, Lossiemouth won the race that many of us hoped she would have run in before, and I think a lot of us felt justified given the manner of her success.
Yeah, she was brilliant, Rishi, wasn't she? Again, 3 pieces on for the first time, and yeah, like she just travelled so well through a race that didn't go a massively strong pace, just a good pace, 105% finishing speed. She's now 5 for 5 at Cheltenham, and yeah, she was brilliant, pole 10, and you know, another bit. We'll come on to his other rides during the week. I thought he was great throughout the whole week. Ryder is ahead, ran well. She stayed on to finish second. It was a good run by her. She's just unlucky to come up against Lossiemouth.
Has that put her Cheltenham hoodoo to bed?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that was a good run. Like she beat the new line, Alexei. Alexei made a mistake at the final flight, but for which he probably would have been closer. But no, she ran well. Just you know, she's just so good at Leopardstown and Cheltenham. Her 2 previous runs. I mean, Gordon Elliott always made the point that there were other reasons for her below par performances at the last 2 Cheltenham festivals. So I think that puts that to rights. She can definitely perform at Cheltenham. She just wasn't as good as Lossiemouth, who was brilliant on the day.
Lossiemouth is favourite with Bet365 for the champion hurdle next year, unsurprisingly 5-2. It's 10-1 bar Lossiemouth. I mean, when you look at some of the horses closest to her in the market, you're thinking, well, 5-2 doesn't look a bad price.
It doesn't, whether you're still going to have will she, won't she, dependent on
Surely
what the field...
you're not going to have that next year, are you?
Well, Honeysuckle went back to win a mares after winning their champion hurdle.
Yeah.
I can't really see it happening.
Yeah.
If they had, let's say, the winner of the Supreme Novices hurdle, I think there'd be more of a discussion around it. But they didn't, did they? So yeah, you'd imagine Lossiemouth will be there next year.
She's only 7.
Yeah.
I mean, you think she's older, don't you?
Yeah.
So and Honeysuckle, yeah, she won her mares hurdle, then won 2 champion hurdles, and then won the mares hurdle her last. You can see Lossiemouth maybe when she gets a bit older, hope going back to the mares hurdle, all going well, but an 8-year-old next year, she's the reigning champion. You'd be surprised if she doesn't go there again. Well,
in the betting, at 20-1 for the champion hurdle is the winner of the mares hurdle. And Steve, I'll let you kick off on this because I know that you obviously were keen on her for this race this time last year. She wasn't as dominant as but that's her style, isn't it?
And that's why she managed to win the Martin Pipe last year. Still kept a handicap company. I mean, she just doesn't win by that far. Jade de Grugy looked somewhat of a danger, jumping the last, and then as soon as she came to her, away she went at the way. And I thought the thing that sums her up was the fact that for such a dominant winner of the race, she didn't top a single one of the metrics on race IQ, and that just sums her up really. Like uncomplicated, not flashy, but just wins. She's now won 10 out of 11 of her starts. I thought she was really good. Jade de Grugy made a mistake at the first, obviously going back hurdling, having been chasing earlier on this season. That probably didn't do her chances any favours. Not a lot happened during the race, really, did it? Jack Kennedy kind of had to take it up when he did because his 2 main market rivals were tracking her in the race, and she just got the job done. And of the 100-odd horses that Gordon Elliott's ran over the last 2 festivals, she's been his 2 winners.
Yeah, he saved her. She saved him last year, and she's done it again this year.
Yeah.
And the only horse to have beaten her over hurdles is, of course,
champion hurdler.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. Steve said. Like, she just there's no fuss about her, and even like Gordon says at home, so she's not flashy. You wouldn't pick her out, but she gets it done. And yeah, Jade de Grugy made that mistake at the first flight, and she was coming back from chasing, and she did challenge on the run to the last. But Woodoo, like even going to the line, she wasn't getting any closer. Woodoo probably had more left to give, and I thought the move to the new course was good for her as well. She stays 2.5 miles really well, and extended 2.5 miles. And yeah, she's just a remarkable mare. She just keeps on winning.
Just going back to Woodoo and the champion hurdle, do you think she could be? You could think she'll stay at this?
I think if anything, she could go out and trip.
Yeah.
I think she stays this trip really well. But this is her race. Come back to it again. It's a stiff 2.5 miles at Cheltenham. Yeah, no reason why it shouldn't be her aim again next year, please God.
I asked you both, obviously, you mentioned Lossiemouth and Brighter Days Ahead. Can I just ask you about the new lion and what the future might hold for him if he were yours?
Yeah, like that was always the worry with him, wasn't it, going into the race, that he'd get done for pace. And the international hurdle where they rode him conservatively. Like he showed pace that day on the run to go and win, but it was obviously against lesser opposition. So yeah, you can see him going back up and trip now. Yeah, I think 2.5 miles plus.
Yeah. Harry Skelton take the safe passage, wasn't it? If you look at some of his rides throughout the week, yes, they're in handicaps, but on the likes of Madara and Supremely West, he was at pains to give them up the inside, brave rides, whereas on the New Line, even down the hill, he was 4 wide, making sure the New Line had an eye of his hurdles. And I don't think that obviously affected the result late on, but it might have cost him second place.
Yeah, the Stairs hurdle was, I thought, one of the most extraordinary races. Home by the Lee, rallying to win, Cabral de Matan travelling like the best horse, Ballyburn clocking some really good numbers in the race. Bob Ollinger running another fine race. What was your reading of it?
Like Home by the Lee, his fifth Cheltenham Festival, 5th Stairs hurdle. Like to come and win it as an 11-year-old. And the Stairs hurdle, before Sir de Burley won it 3 years ago, you had to go back to 1986 to Crimson Embers for the last horse aged in double figures. Now 3 of the last 4 winners are aged in double figures, so it's an older horse's race now. But Home by the Lee, he was just brilliant. And you know, going to the last, I don't know what you were thinking watching it, but Cabral de Matan, when he travelled so well, I was thinking there's a chance that he just won't get up the hill, and therefore Home by the Lee is going to win this as an 11-year-old, and that's exactly. And Ballyburn, like he was a little bit unlucky. He kind of got trapped in the backwash when Cabral de Matan started the weekend, but again going to the line, he wasn't closing on Home by the Lee. I don't think he was ever going to get it. I don't think he was an unlucky loser. I think he was a good second, but I think Home by the Lee was the winner in merit. Yeah.
I would say I thought Ballyburn was unlucky. I thought he was going to win. I think if he'd had the clean run through, he would have won, but. Fair, Home by the Lee did rally, and given that he did rally,
and that's what he does. He keeps finding.
He wouldn't have found more against Ballyburn. But I thought the whole race was fascinating, especially the way Cabral de Matan cruised into contention. It looked visually on the eye, it looked so beautiful, that move.
It did. It was like the third time that it was. Well, it wasn't because it was before the Triumph and the County, but it's Harry Skelton versus Paul Townend. Who's going to get to that rail first, isn't it? And I do think if, for example, Cabral de Matan had jumped left and Ballyburn would have got up the rail, I think he would have had a better chance. Obviously, he had to come round both of them, and Ballyburn still got things going on between his ears, and as soon as he was pulled out, he didn't really look as if he was going to close, whereas with the rail to help, he might have done. Cabral de Matan, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Stamina was always the question mark around him, given how keen he is throughout his races. And, by all accounts, he's going to go chasing.
Yes.
And you've then got the question mark around there not being the 2.5 mile grade 1, so do you drop all the way back to an Arkle?
Yes.
We'll see how he jumps.
Yeah, I mean, what would you do? Because it's hard to see him being a Brown Advisory chase horse, isn't it? Like getting 3 miles. So it's
now 3 mile 1, isn't it? The Brown Advisory. It's an extra furlong.
Dan Skelton seemed to suggest the Arkle would be the plan for him, for which he's 8-1 with Bet365. I mean, the 2 horses ahead of him are Old Park Star at 9-2 and Sober Glory at 7-1. Cabral 8-1, My Daddy Paddy 8-1. I mean, if those 4 turned up, having had good seasons over fences, it would be quite exciting. Okay, let's talk about the Ryanair, which was won by Hartwood. Of course, no factor file, and I think we've already touched on factor file. I think it's one of the worst aspects of this year's festival. That fit factor file, no issues, wasn't seen in either the Ryanair or the Gold Cup. That was a huge omission for me.
Yeah, it was. The fact that Hartwood won this by nearly 10 lengths and the year before Factor File beat Hartwood by nearly 10 lengths summed it up, really. I thought this was a really good ride by Darragh O'Keefe. It was clever because John Bond was slightly sticky at a few, jumping slightly left-handed, and when he jumped left-handed behind the winner, Darragh O'Keefe made sure that he tucked him in behind, so Nico de Boinville had to go out. In the end, Hartwood would have won anyway, but if he'd only won by a length or 2, then Darragh O'Keefe's move, I think it was the third last, would have made all of that. But the race kind of fell apart, didn't it? From looking as if it was going to fall apart about a week beforehand and everything going to the Gold Cup or the Champion Chase, it then looked a really strong contest come declaration time. And then you had Imperi Pass, didn't really run his race. Banbridge, I don't know what to make of Banbridge these days. Seems to run once a year well in the King George and then can't reproduce his form. For a horse that's won a Martin Pipe, has won a 2 mile novice chase, then ran no race in the Gold Cup last year on ground that should have suited, and again this year on ground that should have suited. It just seems in between trips, I suppose, between 2.5 and 3 mile 2.
It was a funny, because at times he looked like he was detaching himself.
Yeah.
Then it looked as if Sean Byrne had got him back into the race and he was travelling better. Then he's detached again, and then he's sort of staying on, looking like he's going to go past them, and then doesn't go past them. Funny.
Yeah, it was funny. I'm with Steve on that. Like I when people were going, he's a King George horse, he's not a Cheltenham horse. I was going, he is a Cheltenham horse. He's a Martin Pipe winner and an Oracle Trial winner. Yeah. Of course he handles Cheltenham, but yeah, I don't know what it is. Like maybe just Kempton just suits him so well. 3 miles exactly, and up with the pace as he is, and he went so close to winning another one this year. But I thought Hardwood was very good. I agree on Darragh O'Keefe's ride. He was very, very good. I think he was better than he was last year. We never know. He probably wouldn't have beaten Factor File, who was Factor File. But he was superior by a long way and from a long way out. And John Bond again rallied to retain his record of finishing in the first 2. Yeah, remarkable. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Gold Cup now. And obviously, we mentioned that Factor File had beaten Hartwood in the Ryanair last year. Of course, Factor File beat Gaelic Warrior in the Irish Gold Cup, and Gaelic Warrior was absolutely majestic. I've watched this race back a few times. The dominance of his performance, it becomes more impressive the more I watch it. All the way through, I mean, you could only imagine what Paul Townend must have been feeling.
Yeah, like his ride was so good. And again, I watched it back a few times. Like he got him out of the gate. For a horse who's a free goer, you would have thought you settle him in behind the front rank anyway. But he kicked him out of the gate. And then he started to settle him, and maybe the confidence that Heidi Color was going to come up and take it off him, which he didn't do until they got around onto the back straight. But he was able to settle him then. And there was a point in the race when Django Bay came up on his outside. They were kind of 4th and 5th, and they kind of changed positions. Django Bay went up into 4th ahead of him, and I thought Gaelic Warrior is after doing too much. He's after expending too much energy. But then all of a sudden, like coming down the hill, and Paul Townend, he sat on him until he got to the final fence. Like he just swung into the home straight. And you're still thinking on the run to the home turn, is the fact that he expended so much energy in the early part of the race, is that going to come back to bite him? But no, he was brilliant, and he's such he's an Oracle winner, an entry bowl winner, and now a Gold Cup winner. Like that kind of whole spectrum of distances and different disciplines, to be able to do it like that, he's such a talent. And no, he was brilliant.
When you look at the build up to the race and the way people spoke about the quality, the depth of the race, the openness of the race, that was a thing. Actually, you could make obviously a strong case with so many horses, but he has been so much better than them that's now the standout, standard-setting performance for the staying chasers, isn't it?
Yeah, it was the new blood coming into the race, wasn't it? Your Django Bays, your Jukebox Mans, all these coming into it. Gaelic Warrior we knew a lot about, but he was then stepping up in trip. But he's just become really consistent, hasn't he? Yes, he's still got his own ways of doing things. You look back at the John Durkan when he ran away with Paul Townend. Yes, I thought he was good in the Irish Gold Cup when second to Factor File, but he was still keen under Patrick Mullins. But like Don said, it was a ballsy ride by Paul Townend in order to then put him out in front. Yes, Haiti Kalur came across, and that ended up, I think, winning the race for Paul Townend, because he could sit in behind Grey Dawning, in behind Haiti Kalur, and actually then get settled in the mid part of the race. But he was dominant at the end. I thought, I know where you're thinking, was going to plug on and become a danger, but just how still Paul Townend sits at the second last and at the last. Yes, he's had a good week. Yes, he's now ridden 5 Gold Cup winners. But to have the confidence to let the horse just do his own thing at the final 2 fences, I thought just shows the talent of the rider. And he becomes the first jockey to win the Champion Hurdle, the Champion Chase, and the Gold Cup in the same season.
Extraordinary. To the point where Ruby's saying, he's surpassed me.
Yeah, he's not filling my shoes anymore. I think he's recreating them. And well, he's won 5 Gold Cups. He's gone ahead of Pat Taff. Yeah. And got the treble up, the 3 big championship races. But it wasn't only that; it was the quality of his rides as well. The way that he rode them, and even looking back on the Gold Cups that he's won, lots of different types of rides as well in there.
Even some of the rides he got beaten on, I thought he was very good in getting horses like. We'll come to it later, like Selma de Vary, for example.
Yeah.
Who I thought, even the Racing Post report said she wasn't as keen. His hands were like that really for the first, all the way up the straight till they turned the bend. Like that Ballyburn, getting him to at least drop the bridle early on, so he finished the race off. I thought he was on point all the way through.
Yeah, final demand as well to get. I know that Kitzbühel was going away from him again on the run to the line, but no, he only rode in 1 handicap. He rode Carbo in the County Hurdle. That was his only handicap ride. It was all graded races there, outside of that.
It's a bit like you, Don, just operating in
Nothing
grade
like
ones
me
on
at
this
all.
podcast, for example. Gaelic Warriors 3-1 favourite with Bet365 for the Gold Cup. Does that appeal?
We do get suckered into this, don't we? Every year when there's a dominant Gold Cup winner, you go, it's definitely, Galopin is definitely going to win it next year.
More,
and then last year, I know the way you're thinking, he can definitely win for the next few. And I think we are, yes, he's only 8, isn't he? We had an 8-year-old beating a 7-year-old beating an 8-year-old this year. So they should come back next year. But we do get a bit overexcited sometimes thinking a horse is going to win 3 Gold Cups.
Far too sensible. That's far too sensible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But like it is. There's a recency bias that goes with a wow Gold Cup winner. Of course, he's going to win another one. I mean, how much ground do these younger horses have to make up in order to get up to the level that he's at now? And the answer is a lot. But 12 months is a long time.
Yeah. Of the novices in the market, or from this season, Final Demand and Kitzbühel are 16s, along with Lulamba. So it's dominated, obviously, by Gaelic Warrior. Django Bay's next, and Factor Far behind that. So, okay, that's a look at the championship races. Don't
forget the Champion Chase.
Oh, have I missed the? I have missed the championship. My apologies. The Champion Chase. I just skirted right over that. That's because, of course, I got my heart broken with L'Heure de Sud getting beaten in the race. But Etait, my goodness, what a performance from him.
Yeah.
He absolutely was. We're talking about good rides, by the way, and Paul Townend's ride on him. That was magic.
Yeah, no, I think this ride, I mean, it's not all about rides, obviously, but this ride from Paul Townend was up there with the Gaelic Warrior ride. Like, to sit as far back as he was, and he said afterwards, he couldn't go any faster than he was going, but he could have. That's not it. It's to have the confidence in his own judgment of pace, and his finishing speed was 101%. So bang on, and the confidence in his horse. Because I was against Etait. I thought, he's not a Cheltenham horse. His 3 runs before that were all, he underperformed given the trajectory of his season up to that point in each of those 3 runs before this. But there on Wednesday, the pace that they went, obviously they went fast. Imaginary, we'll come on to him now in a second, but to sit as far back as he did and then ask him to make up his ground, and you could see Harry Skelton and L'Heure de Sud on the run down the hill. He had a look over his shoulder, but it wasn't a look of confidence. It was a look of where's Paul Townend? And he was right. And then to make the mistake that he made at the final fence, he jumped the fence well and then kind of pitched on landing. His finishing sections were still fast, even allowing for that. So, and then he won by 10 lengths in the end. Yeah, no, it was like the fast pace obviously suited him, but hood off as well. So the change of headgear the other way around, maybe that made a difference. But he was great. Yeah.
I'll pick up with you on Majborough first of all, because I know you obviously been a huge fan of the horse, and going into the race off the back of what he did at the Dublin Racing Festival, a lot of people thought he was nigh on untouchable for this race if he reproduced that, but he didn't.
No, and whether it was second time cheap pieces, whether it was the better ground, whether it's the Cheltenham's old course. Obviously, you need to think back. He's now done this twice, Arkle and Champion Chase on the old course, won the Triumph on the new course when it's less about jumping. I don't really know, because he jumps so well, doesn't he? If you look back, I think the first 5-6 fence, he's bang on. Yeah. Ends up passing Quilixios and gets the lead. Then he slightly nods on one, then he's long at the next, and then the one after. No, then he's better at the one after that, and then he, makes his terrible mistake. But I think he's just probably going a stride too quick on that better ground, and that's against him. I don't think you can ride Margeborough any other way, though. I've heard people saying around the Ryanair chase, number one, he's then got to jump more fences. And number two, I don't actually think slowing down will help him, because Mark Walsh is arguably a passenger in it. I think you've just got to ride him.
Well, his best jumping performance was when they let him rip.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what Harry Cobden does on him next year, because Harry Cobden is an absolute genius at front-running tactical rides. We saw it on Quebecois. Yes, it didn't come off. We saw it on Kitzbühel. Like, he is brilliant, particularly on the front with quirky jumpers, let's call them. It'll be interesting to see that partnership next year going forward.
Etait, Kopeck de Board, 4-1 joint favourites with Bet365 for the Champion Chase next year. Cargesi 8-1, Majborough is 12s, and Marie Nationale 16s and 33-1 bar those. Anything appeal there?
I think Cargesi is overpriced. Yeah, we'll come on to her now in a sec. But on Majborough, I think that's still the race for him. The Champion Chase is still his race, and he's a horse who, like his runs over fences before this, when he's made a mistake, that hasn't phased him. He's gone on to the next fence and jumped it really well. But this time it seemed to, because that nod over the middle fence and the back straight, then he seemed to just not be certain of what he was doing at the next fence, and he was long and kind of lost momentum. Then, as you say, Steve, he was good at the next. And then the third last was the exact same mistake as he made at the second last in the Arkle last year, like through the middle of it, hind legs first. And yeah, like it's a you know, obviously it's a pity to see him doing that because he's such a talent. But yeah, like I think that's to try and restrain him. Now, it's a project probably maybe worth trying, but I just think that he's at his best when he's going forward, and that's what they said at Leopardstown. Cheek pieces on, let him bowl, and he was brilliant that day. So if you can just
Willie Mullins did say after the race, he said he still thinks he's a champion chase winner if he puts it all together.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with that. Yeah.
I'd say arguably the three most talented horses in training at the minute are Factorfile, Gaelic Warrior and Marshborough. Like, I'd put him in that bracket, but you need everything to go right. I think he can put in a high 170s performance in a champion chase. You just need him to jump, is it 8 of them correctly?
Yeah. I think he got dropped a pound for that.
Did he? Like, I was in Steve's camp going into the race. I thought that he had so much in hand that he could put in a less than perfect round of jumping and get, like, he didn't need to be as good over his fence as he was at Leopardstown. He could get away with one or two mistakes along the way, but you know, not with the mistake he made at the third last.
Okay, let's focus in on the novice hurdlers, and I think it's fair to say that a lot of people will be holding out hope that the Supreme is going to turn out to be a terrific race. Old Park Star finished ahead of Sober Glory and My Daddy Paddy. Steve, I'll start with you on this. Obviously, the horses that a lot of people expected to come to the fore have come to the fore. So how do you think this race is going to play out in the future?
I was just interested in what routes they go down. I think all 3 sets of connections after crossing the line said, we'll go novice chasing, we'll go novice chasing. The Dan Skelton's had a change of heart and I think is now going to target the champion hurdle with My Daddy Paddy. Sober Glory I thought was unlucky. He jumped really well other than the last. He lost 4.75 miles an hour at the final obstacle. And I thought after that, it had knocked the stuffing out of him and he'll drop back into a well-beaten third. But he didn't. He came back at the finish. And I think that's probably arguably the most impressive part of the race was how that attitude coming back up the hill, and he'd have a massive chance going forward. I thought there were 3 really smart horses. A lot of the chatter was around the Irish coming into it, the likes of Talk the Talk and El Kairos, but yeah, the UK dominated this. The markets then after this race went absolutely mad. You couldn't give away the likes of Ballyfad and Skylight Hustle and King Rasco Grey because Talk the Talk had been well beaten, but that kind of proved later on with King Rasco Grey coming back that the Irish form actually isn't a long way behind. But yeah, the UK have some smart horses going forward.
Absolutely. Old Park Star is 92 favourite for the Arkle next year, and I think he's 12-1 for the champion hurdle. Those prices obviously with Bet365. Were he yours, what route would you take? Yeah,
either or. Like you could go down either route, but it was a bad start for the Irish, wasn't it? First 4 were straight, and the first 3 were clear from early in the whole thing. But no, like Sober Glory was. I felt for him because he'd done so well, and going to the last, I thought he was going to win, and then even. Like My Daddy Paddy, he was done no favours either by the bump. No. He kind of got bumped both, and Sober Glory went off the rail and then back into and he still kept going forward. Like he must be a really tough horse.
On the head-on, though, it does look like he's a smaller individual than the other 2. So it did look a little bit like he was bullied out of the way because they're bigger and tougher.
And it looked like watching it live side on, it looked like he might be coming to win the race, and then that happened. And he ends up finishing 3rd in the end, but still a big run by all 3. And Talk the Talk, like as we found out later on with King Roscoe Grey, it just wasn't his running for whatever reason. Maybe he needs to go out and trip, but he was so good at Leopardstown. The 2 runs, when the one where he fell at the last and the one that he won, I think he just put a line through that run for him.
He had been on the go quite a while though, hadn't he? He was out early in sort of October time. Maybe, whether that ended up just counting against him later on.
You mentioned King Rasco Grey. He won the Turners. He's got all sorts of options next year. He's currently 2nd favourite to Lossiemouth for the champion hurdle. Let's talk about the performance and what the future might hold. Yeah,
he was really weak in the market. Like Paul Townend choice, and he's 3rd best of the Willie Mullins of the Willie Mullins horses. But no, he was great. I thought he battled on really well to get the better of Active Innocence. And I think Willie said more or less directly afterwards that he saw him as a champion hurdle horse. And, you know, we know this, the Bearing Bingham over 2.5 miles coming back down on trip. And he was weak in the market before the Leopardstown race in which he was beaten. So he'd obviously come forward from that. Weak in the market again on Wednesday. But no, I thought he was by far the best horse in the race on the day. A couple of horses in behind, like Soldier Reeves and Zeus Parrot, they both finished off their races really well. Soldier Reeves was quickest of all through the final furlong. He was 150 to 1 shot. He did well to come from as far back as he did, and Zeus Power as well. Joseph O'Brien's horse stayed on really well just to snatch third place. So there are a couple of horses in behind as well. Shuttle Diplomacy ran well as well. Worth noting, I think, for the future. But King Roscoe Gray, like, he's still really likely race as well. So he's really exciting, yeah.
I love the fact Willie Millen said after the race, couldn't believe the price. Thought he got sort of 3 or 4 to 1. Yeah, he was as big as he was.
Yeah, it was an interesting market, wasn't it? You had Bossman Jack was really well backed, and then week before the off, I thought he ran a good race. He made obviously a bad mistake at the last, and that put pay to his. He was one of the Skelton horses that didn't quite finish off up the hill late on. There was a few that week, Cabrera de Matan, Money Garrow and the Albert Bartlett, another one as well that didn't quite get up the hill. But yeah, it does make me laugh. As soon as over the line, Willie Mullen says, yes, this is a champion hurdle horse, and Paul Tannen gets off and says, oh yeah, I can't wait to ride him over a fence next season, which sums it up really. But Willie does this, doesn't he, with these horses that win this race. You've had previously loads of them. Impero Pass was one. The Cheveley Park horse that I can't remember now that won. Sir Gerhard did it.
Ballyburn,
yeah, Ballyburn. So yeah, they instantly are champion hurdle horses, and then when the dust settles, they then revisit it.
Yeah.
But it is going to be interesting because what do you do with him? With Lossiemouth obviously now going to be number one. Do you go novice chasing?
He's 10 to 1 for the champion hurdle. He's also 10 to 1 for the Brown Advisory favourite. King Roscoe Gray. Active Innocence is 12 to 1. And then we've got Johnny's Jury, who's the next horse I'll talk about from running in the Albert Bartlett. Johnny's Jury is third favourite for the Brown Advisory with Bet365. What do we make of that Albert Bartlett finish? I mean, obviously, it was a bit of a... I thought the Passing Wife ran a cracking race. I quite liked the Passing Wife for the race, and was a bit annoyed that didn't get the win. But Johnny's Jury showed a tremendous attitude under a determined Gavin Sheehan. Yeah,
I think has been given the biggest rise of the whole week, up at £18 to 147. He'd been well handicapped back in the day for a handicap, wouldn't he? Yeah. I actually thought missing the start was the winning of the race for the horse and Gavin Sheehan, because this was one of those ones where we had a false start. I thought you could upgrade Mondui Boy because he was the only horse that was up with the pace that managed to stay there, because it was where you needed to come from the rear. The whole race was kind of dictated by Dr. Steinberg racing too keenly. You knew that his race was over at halfway. Paul Townend just accepted defeat, the fact that he wouldn't have anything in the tank late on. But yeah, it was a changing complexion late on, wasn't it? Johnny's Jury, Fruit de Mer and the Passing Wife. I think the thing to take out of the race is Gavin Cromwell knows what he's doing when he supplements a horse, doesn't he? He did it with, I know you're thinking in the Gold Cup last year, he did it with the Passing Wife here, and I think he did it with Now Is the Hour in the Brown Advisory, who was a massive price and ran it to kind of hit the frame at a big price. So that's one thing that I've noted going into next season, is if Gavin Cromwell gets the owners to put their hand in their pocket for a supplementary fee, it's well worth looking at them despite the price.
Yeah. Your take on the Albert Bartlett, Don?
Yeah, just on Now Is the Hour. I think he was going to run the Leinster National at Naas the weekend before, but he was going to be top weight in that, so they decided to run him in the Brown Advisory. I think he's on his way to the Grand National. Like I'd Mondui Boy as a horse, to take out of the race because he was up prominent from early. The Passing Wife, likewise, he was more prominent than the other two, and travelled really well into his race, jumped over the last and looked a likely winner. Fruit de Mer, I performed expectations. Darragh O'Keefe rode the other Henry de Bromhead horse in the race. Sean Flanagan rode him, and he stayed on really well towards the far side. And Johnny's Jury was just strongest of all up the hill. So, and like on the Albert Bartlett, it often is that type of race, isn't it, where it's survival of the fittest, and it turns into a real dar test at the trip for novices. And it's why it's thrown up big results in the past. Novices being asked to do something that they've never done before is over that trip and at that pace. But look, the winner was good. But yeah, I'm taking Mondui Boy and the Passing Wife out of it.
Okay.
I think it's worth keeping an eye on Money Garrow going forward. I was keen on him, so I had my eyes on him. Yeah. And I cannot believe I didn't get paid out the place element of it. He ended up weakening into 8th late on, but it'll be interesting to see how his campaigned next season. He could obviously go novice chasing, target the Jack Richards, back down to 2.5 miles, having looked a bit of a non-stayer over 3 miles. They could look at dropping back, I suppose. for the Coral Cup. They could look at getting qualified for the Temps early on in the season and doing a Supremely West. So I just think Money Garrow is well worth keeping an eye on. Yes, he was fairly obvious and will probably gone into hundreds of people's trackers.
Yeah.
But it will be interesting. I wouldn't give up on him if he's given a few quieter runs at the start of next season, let's say.
Willie Mullins won the Triumph Hurdle again. He's won 6 of the last 7 renewals of the race. Not quite as big a price as Poneros 12 months ago, but Apollon de Charny was very tough again. Lots of horses with chances. Lots of horses running well in behind, the likes of Maestro Conti and Manella Study, for example. But could you see Apollon de Charny?
Could see him beforehand.
Yeah.
No. David Casey gave a mention on a pre-Cheltenham evening that I was
did
on,
he?
which, I only realised when they were going to the final flight, I remembered. But look, he travelled really well for Patrick, didn't he? Like, he just moved into his race really stylishly. The rule changed. You can't run a horse who hasn't run over hurdles yet or beforehand. Now, he's run once, so he's gone and done it. Only half the price that Poneros was last year, but he did it well. Obviously, he finished second behind Proactive at Etait, so there was that line of form. Proactive was disappointing on the day, but he won well. Manella Study ran well, I thought, and was maybe unlucky not to be second. But yeah, Apollon de Charny, it was very difficult to find him beforehand, but I think he was the winner on merit, all right. He travelled like the most likely winner from a fair way out.
Yeah. I think there are some notable performances in behind. I obviously mentioned the 2 horses that travelled so well, Manella Study and Maestro Conti, and I also mentioned Selma de Varry early on. Yeah,
it was interesting to watch the head-on back because it is worth watching. Harry Skelton gets 3 days for cutting up Paul Townend in order to try and get to the rail. That ended up putting pay to Selma de Varry's chance. I think she's really interesting going forward. It was said a lot on the preview circuit, the fact that they didn't have her very long before the DRF run, and now they'll have the whole season with her next year, which is going to be huge for her and that operation going forward. Patrick Mullins ended up getting 2 days for coming across on Apollon de Charny. That probably hampered Manella Study slightly. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. The handicap of this morning is given Maestro Conti and Manella Study rises up to 143. Now, to put that in context, Stick to the Plan, who finished second in the county hurdle, is rated 142. So it does just put into context how much they do need to progress next season and then from high-end handicappers into graded company. A lot of people will be looking at markets for the champion hurdle. I think Poneros probably showed that this year, is that there is a real next step in order to go into this championship level. But dependent on how Maestro Conti is campaigned this year, they tried to do it with Live Conti this year and get him into a county hurdle off a knife weight. And Maestro Conti, he's that sort of horse that a county hurdle would really suit. So again, like Money Garrow, just keep an eye on how his campaign next season.
Fun enough, I watched the race again last night. I was just thinking, Selma de Varry looks like a county hurdle winner. A massive field, just travelling behind. Well, I think she's got a mark in the 130s, isn't she?
Yeah. Well, you look at the last 2 years. Cargeese campaigned quietly, won the county hurdle. Mercia this year was slightly unlucky in the county. Similar sort of profile. You can imagine Selma de Varry won't be seen until January time. One run in the county hurdle.
Exactly the plan.
And she's a free-going sort. She'll probably learn to settle a bit better as she gets a little bit older as well. I thought she had expended too much energy. Like I'm a big fan of hers, but I didn't think that Paul had the horse to get to the rail in the end. I thought he was moving up on the outside. She just couldn't get there.
I know he didn't run, but obviously how she ran probably boosted the form of Narciso Haas, who was a short price for it. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with him, whether they go chasing, because he looks a lovely sort. He will jump a fence in time, whether they go straight over fences and go the Marsborough and Lalamba route, or whether, because of that setback, they ease off and give him a quieter season over hurdles.
He is very much in the Marsborough mould, isn't he? Like he's a triumph or a juvenile hurdler who's going to be a chaser and potentially a staying chaser as well in the making.
Yeah, so don't forget, everyone will be going through these and scouring through all of the form of this year's festival. Just don't forget about Narciso Haas.
All right, let's move on to the novice chasers and spin through these. You mentioned earlier on Carghese in the Arkle. Of course, a lot of people will look at Kopek de Boer's mistake at the last. Lulamba, I thought, was a little bit disappointing overall.
Yeah, he made a mistake at the second last, didn't he, when he was definitely in with a chance. But I think we're in danger of underrating Carghese again. Her jumping is so good. She needed to jump as well as she did in order to maintain her advantage, but she did, and that wasn't a surprise. She's such a good jumper. And also, she must be really tough because the race she had against Romeo Cooley at Leopardstown, it's not so long ago on that ground, and she was finishing off her race that day. But on this ground, like Cheltenham now, she's finished second to Majbert in a Triumph Hurdle, won a county hurdle, and now she's won an Arkle. That's her record at the Cheltenham Festival. Yeah. And yeah, like we'll never know if Kopek de Boer hadn't made that mistake, but he made the mistake, and then very suddenly the race was over. Very quickly. Like she just zipped away, and he's half the price that she is for the champion chase next year. I think that's a key point. I think you make it beautifully, Don. The fact that she compounded his mistake by how brilliant she was at the last and how quickly she was away from it, and so you couldn't afford to make a mistake because she's going to make you pay.
Yeah, it's still a finishing speed percentage of 101%. Like Danny Mullins is just brilliant, isn't he?
Yeah.
Just full stop, and at Cheltenham, especially on these second strings. But you touch on the jump in, 9.1 jump index for Cargese. Lambert actually put the highest jump index of his career at 8.2. And Nico just needed that big one at the second last, asked for a long one. Lambert put in an extra stride, and that ended up putting paid to that. And it was interesting, Kopek de Boer's mistake, because there was a few horses at that fence on the old course that made that mistake. He did, pitched on landing. Search for Glory did it in the Ultra, and Etait did it in the Champion Chase. So whether there was just something about that patch of ground, be relatively interesting going forward. But there's a really good side angle from Racing TV where Kopek de Boer is coming there swinging, makes the mistake at the last. But like Don says, Cargese just sprints clear up the hill, and really impressive performance. And because she's a mare, I think a lot of the price will be because there's that option of the mare's chase. But she's a 2-miler, isn't she? Yeah, exactly. I can't see her being a 2.5 miler.
No, she's fast.
At all.
Yeah. But look, Kopek de Boer ran a big race, and it was only his second chase. So, and he had an interrupted preparation, obviously. So you can see why he's fashionable, and he's a big player, obviously, in the championship division next year. But I just think, Cargese has been underrated again by the market. Well,
she's 8-1 for the champion chase with Bet365 if you're interested in her. Etait, Kopek de Boer, 4-1 joint favourites for that. The Brown Advisor is also won by Willie Mullins and 1-2. In fact, Kit's Bull beat Final Demand. Kit's Bull, I know he was a very good performance, but I thought the ride Harry Cobden gave him after the disappointment on No Drama This End just half an hour beforehand, or 40 minutes beforehand, I thought was brilliant. And what an excellent race between those two horses.
Yeah, it was, I thought both jockeys did really well. I thought Paul Townend was really good on Final Demand as well. Obviously knows Kit's Bull, knows he jumps right-handed, and I thought was really clever trying to sneak up his inside when he knew that Kit's Bull was going to jump slightly right-handed. I thought it was great to see Final Demand bounce back from a disappointing effort in the Ladbrokes chase. I was making the case beforehand, the fact that Grade 1 at Limerick doesn't have a good record going forward. So 2 years ago, Gaelic Warrior won the Grade 1 at Limerick at Christmas, disappointed at the Dublin Racing Festival, came back to win an Arkle. Last year, and Perry Pass won the Grade 1 at Limerick at Christmas, disappointed at the Dublin Racing Festival, came back to win at Aintree. Nearly did it again with Final Demand, won the Grade 1 at Limerick at Christmas, disappointed at the Dublin Racing Festival and could only finish second here. But that's just something for next season to bear in mind around that Grade 1 at Limerick at Christmas. But it was good to see him back, because I had slight reservations around him when I saw that they fitted him with a first-time tongue tie. Thought, maybe this preparation hasn't gone completely well, but it worked on him. He bounced back to form. He's a horse with a massive amount of talent. But it was the same about the winner. I mean, the obvious race for him next season is the King George, isn't it? Given how dominant he was in the Quarto Star. Yeah. But you wouldn't rule him out of Gold Cup either.
No. And for what it's worth, because there was a lot of chat about how suitable he'd be for Kempton, as we all knew, having won the Quarto Star. Gaelic Warriors a 5-2 favourite for that race. Janko Bay and Kit's Bull 8-1.
For the King George?
King George.
Yeah. Like, before the race, exactly, I was like King George, but like everybody was saying King George because he was so good. Like, he was brilliant in the Quarto Star. He does jump to his right. But I think he's definitely in the Gold Cup picture because, again, like Final Demand, when he left the gap on the inside and Paul Tennant exploited it, you say, Steve, it looked like he was going to go and get him because we know that Final Demand stays. But he was going away again in the run to the line, and his jumping, again, was so good. He was dominant from early. Great ride by Harry Cobden. And he's a Kempton horse, but now he's a Cheltenham horse as well, absolutely. Even though he does jump a little bit to his right. And I think there's a lot going on in this race. Oscar's brother ran a big race as well. He got little bit outpaced in the run down the hill and then stayed on again. He clocked the fastest final furlong in the race. And Cocktail de Van probably just didn't fully see it out. He's probably more 2.5, 2.6 horse. Yeah. So, and he didn't jump as well as he had jumped at Leopardstown as well. Now, whether that was Cheltenham or whether it was the fact that he was in behind hopefully it's the fact that he was in behind and you know, dropped down and tripped maybe and ridden more aggressively. He can jump as well, but he can jump well again.
Yeah.
But I think he's a talented horse as well. So I think this race there could be a few really interesting horses coming out of it.
We're going to talk about the National Hunt Chase and the Jack Richards. So Holloway Queen won the National Hunt Chase. Meet Me by the Sea beat Gold Dancer in the Jack Richards. So I'll group those together. Those two races. Anything in particular that really was noteworthy for you?
Yeah, like Holloway Queen, great. Like she stayed on really well. Big win for James Bowen, who doubled up then the following day. Thought King of Answers did well to stay on. He missed a break. He was second last jump in the first fence. I thought he did well to come from the back and finish second. And then in the Jack Richards, yeah, Meet Me by the Sea again. It was a race that favoured the prominent race. Meet Me by the Sea and Gold Dancer. They were prominent from early, but really, really good performance. Meet Me by the Sea to stay on as well as he did. There was one to take out of the race in behind. Maybe King Alexander stayed on to take fourth place. Yeah. But no, I thought the winner was very good.
Are your thoughts on those races, Steve?
Yeah, Meet Me by the Sea was good. The horse for me to take out the Jack Richards was Jordan's Cross. I backed him, so you obviously had an eye on it. But he was hampered by the start, was a bit too far back, and I think probably a step up in trip will suit him next time. But he just performs really well at Cheltenham. Something like a Paddy Power Gold Cup, a December Gold Cup. He'll be running in those sort of races.
Okay, let's talk about the handicaps. And I'm going to open the floor up here because obviously there's so many. I've just been through Saratoga in the Fred Winter, Johnny Who. What happened to Jaguar? What a horse he is. And the Ultimate, Madara bolting up in the plate, Jinko Blue in the, the BetMGM Cup now. Final orders in the cross-country chase. Martyr Tour, a massive prize for Charlie Deutsch, Venetia Williams, Supremely West bolting up. Ask Brewster, what a game performance, rallying to beat Road to Home. Willful in the County Hurdle and Air of Entitlement beating Hot Fuss, which I think you backed Air of Entitlement, didn't you? So.
Yeah, yeah, she made a difference all right to the week. Yeah, look, there's so much in there. Saratoga was very good. That Nace race now in which he finished second behind Highland Crystal, that's now got Band of Outlaws won it, Armax won it, Jazzy Matty finished third or fourth in it, I think, behind Biker, who was third, and they finished first and second. I think I'm missing one as well, but then it's been the plan. And Brazil, I'm missing his brother, his half brother, also trained by Porrig Roach. But like he was great. He was very, very weak in the market as well. I went out to 10-1. Like I was annoyed. I'd missed 5-1 a few weeks ago, and then he's a 10-1 shot. But he was great. Mark Walsh gave him a super ride as well. And Jaguar, I thought Jaguar did really well. I thought he stayed on well. He was a little bit unlucky. He's unexposed at staying trips. Sure, he's going to go for the Grand National now. A 7-year-old Noble Yates proved that he's bridged the gap back to Bog Scar. So 7-year-olds now can win the Grand National. Like they were talking about the Ryanair chase for him. I can tell by your voice, your faces that you're probably, or one of you was on him. I thought he did well, and given that he's unexposed at staying trips, hopefully he makes it to the Grand National. I think he'd be a big player in that race. Yeah.
Just on the Fred Winter, I thought Winston Jr. ran really well as well. Don't think the race worked out in his favour.
He stayed on well.
Yeah. But I'll let you go. Open book for the.
Yeah, just touching on Faye Bramley horses, like the horse that ran well in the Triumph as well, didn't it? Finished fifth, so ran two juvenile. Ran two juvenile hurdlers, and they both ran really well. So Faye Bramley, she knows exactly what she's doing. We'll touch on the two Skelton handicap wins, shall we?
Sure. Yes.
Madara and Supremely West. It's getting to a stage where when you see a horse with this profile, you just need to get behind the gamble, don't you? Madara was, I thought, the more obvious of the two, with the cheap pieces going back on, but he's up £10 to 150, so he'll be in graded company, and I think you could probably bridge that gap. Next season, Supremely West will be interested to see how they're campaigned. He's up 9 to 144 as well. Final Orders won the cross country. I thought that was number one due to Favori de Champdou going up a lump of weight for winning earlier on the season. I think that's something to mind next year. I think Gordon Etait will probably have an eye on not doing that with horses next season, but I thought the ground was the main thing for Final Orders. The better ground is just so much better on that surface. What do you do with Jaguar? I mean, a horse that you settle in the rear because he's too keen, but then he jumps poorly because he's settled in rear, and do you fit him with headgear, but then that'll probably make him too keen. I mean, he's so talented, but so frustrating. I was on Quebecois in that. I thought he ran a brilliant race. I thought Harry Cobden was brilliant. I thought gave one of the best rides of the festival, even though it was in defeat. He's up £5 to 144. I think there's going to be races again for him next year. The likes of, your Paddy Power Gold Cups, your December Gold Cups. I think he could probably do that over 2.5 miles next season as well. County Hurdle, there's loads of eye catchers in behind. There was loads of horses that didn't get a run, all angling towards this near side. Tell Her the Name was one. I think he'll be interested in going to Aintree, was travelling well, likes the better ground. Mercier, I don't think, is one to give up on either.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, you can pick out 3, 4, 5 eye catchers from each race, really.
Yeah. I'll add just a notable effort again from Jazzy Matty in defeat at the hands of Martator. But what a horse he is at that festival.
I think that the fact that Charlie Deutsch has been banned for going over the limit as well will make that even more annoying if you back Jazzy Matty.
I thought he was up when they went past the line. I thought he'd won.
Jazzy Matty,
I thought he had.
He was odds on the exchanges.
Yeah. And Hot Fuss, who finished behind
right,
Entitlement. Give another mention to Hot Fuss. I thought bounced back from the abscess in his foot at Kelso to run really well in the Martin Pipe. Some other performances worthy of talking about. I mean, the Champion Bumper. I think I'll let you talk about this because obviously well done to Noel Meade, the Morn Rambler, but Colin Keane.
Oh yeah, phenomenal! And a genius stroke by Noel Meade to book Colin Keane, I thought. But yeah, like he kind of, Colin was kind of, had this kind of in the back of his mind, he'd love to ride in the Champion Bumper. It was never really reality. And just a few weeks ago, Noel Meade called him. He said he was riding at Dundalk and he saw a missed call from Noel Meade and he rang him back. He said, do you want to ride in the Bumper? And the ride that he gave the Morning Ramble, it's like he'd been riding at Cheltenham every Saturday afternoon, isn't it? Like he set off in behind. It was a false start. He said he thought he might have been too far forward at the first go, but then the second go he was in behind. But then he kind of dropped through the field, but he allowed his horse to, he just was, again, happy that the pace he was going and pace of a 2-mile bumper. How does Colin Keane know what the right pace is for a 2-mile bumper? He obviously
just
does.
A gift, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then just took him out and brought him to the outside on the run down the hill. And then to kick on, and it was brilliant. And you could see how much it meant to him. Like he's won Breeders' Cups, Royal Adds, St James Palace Stakes, derbies, Irish derbies. To go and win a bumper, like he seemed to get a really good kick out of that. So that was brilliant, and really good training performance from Noel Meade. It was 2000 was Sausalito Bay was Noel Meade's first winner when he beat Best Mate into second place.
Oh, amazing. And of course, Colin Keane following the footsteps of Jamie Spencer, who won the bumper on Pizarro all those years ago, beating Rhinestone Cowboy, isn't it?
Right.
I thought actually the runner-up in the race, I'll keep an eye on her. I mean, she's obviously very expensive. Was it 700?
Yeah, she was one of those,
10 grand or something, Mata Centure. I thought she ran really well.
For a 4-year-old filly running against elder geldings, yes, she was in receipt of a lot of weight, but they'll definitely work back from the Mayor's Novice Hurdle with her next year, won't they? She was the obvious one. Barton Snow, poor old, it's on the line.
Oh my goodness, 4 years in a row.
4 twos,
I thought Derek O'Connor gave a brilliant interview afterwards saying, I was trying everything to try and get him to go for his horse because it's on the line, would go for it, and it was...
I mean, Barton Snow made that mistake at the last as well.
Yeah.
Gave him another...
He hit it halfway up, and he wasn't proven over the trip, was he? He was kind of 3 miles, 2.5 miles,
Well, that's why I bagged it's on the line, and rounding the bend, I was like, we're going to outstay him up the hill, it's fine. And then there was just a sense of inevitability of he's going to finish second again.
A few people mentioned that the winning ride was sort of JT McNamara-esque on Red Dove. All those years ago. Dino Blue. I mean, what a mare she has been for her connections.
Yeah, look, she was the standard setter. She was the obvious one, but she went and did it. No messing. Won it last year. Was beaten by Limerick Lace the year before on softer ground. Won it last year and went and did it again this year. And again, just did everything straightforwardly, nothing complicated. I thought only by night ran a big race though. She stayed on really well. The worry or the unknown about her going into the race was whether she'd stay 2.5 miles, but she saw that well. She was actually closing on Dina Blend. Dina Blue was probably idling going to the line, but she finished a good second and well cleared the rest, so I thought she ran really well in defeat.
Yeah, I thought she's just so reliable, runs her race, turns up. I know that we often talk about the mares and where it sits in the championship division, but she's helped make that mares chasing division at least respectable.
And this was a much better renewal this year. Panic Attack, July Flower, only by night. It was a proper race this year, and I thought this was the best that Dino Blue had jumped. I thought Panic Attack might get her at it because Panic Attack is such a good jumper, but Dino Blue was spot on. It'll be interesting to see whether she can do it again as a 10-year-old next season.
Okay, is there anything else you want to mention in the summary of the Cheltenham Festival before we get the crystal ball out for 2027?
I mean, there are plenty. As Steve said, you can pick eye catches out of
Sure.
all the handicaps. I thought the Martin Pipe hurdle in particular, like the winner was very good, and she's 2 for 2 now at Cheltenham. Like it'll be interesting to see what her target will be in our next season, our entitlement for Henry de Bromhead. Good ride by Paddy O'Brien as well as first Cheltenham Festival winner. Jump by Lane, probably the eye catcher of the whole meeting. You know, everybody saw it. Like, and I wouldn't blame Anna McGuinness. She just everywhere she went, she ran into a cul-de-sac, and then she finally got into the clear, and he stayed on really well. So he's obviously, you know, he's going to be really interesting. Fairly likely racehorse as well. He won an up the yard challenge before this at Punchestown, and that was his kind of prep for this. So big run by him. And Carl de Tourelle in that race as well. He got hampered at the top of the hill. He's a bit more exposed than those, but I thought he did well then to recover from that incident and keep on as well as he did. So, yeah, they'd be the 3 out of the Martin Pipe.
Okay, last word on it, or are you ready to cast the
I'm
crystal ball?
all ready for my crystal ball.
I'm excited by this now. You set a high bar from last year. Now, before we get into our best bets for the 2027 Cheltenham Festival, just to let you know of a free-to-play 6 horses challenge. It's available every weekend with free spins on offer if you get 2 or 3 selections correct. Prize pools are available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6, and T's and C's apply. So it's now time for us to pull together our thoughts ahead of the Cheltenham Festival in 2027. We're all going to pick out one bet each for next year's festival. And Don, you are on the plate first.
So one bet?
One bet.
Yeah, one.
But you can offer a little bit more if you want.
I have a few in mind, but the horse who I think is most overpriced at this point is Kitzbühel for the Gold Cup.
Kitzbühel for the Gold Cup.
I just think that we all had him, me included, down as a Kempton horse, right-handed, but I thought what he did in the Brown Advisory Chase, in a good Brown Advisory Chase, I thought we saw another dimension to him. And then to stay on like he did to see off Final Demand, I thought it was a big performance. He saw it the trip well. He was going away from Final Demand, going to the line, so every chance he'd get 3 miles, 2.5 furlongs. He's only a 6-year-old, so I kind of really like that profile that he can improve as a staying chaser as he moves from 6 to 7. And yeah, I thought he should have been shorter in the market than he is.
16 to 1 with Bet365 for the Gold Cup, Kitzbühel. So Willie Mullins wins it again.
I want to hear the rest of the shortlist. Who else
have you
did you have in mind?
Cargesi, I think, is overpriced.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier on, I thought she should have been shorter for the Champion Chase. And I think Cocktail Divan would be interesting at an intermediate trip over 2 miles 5 for the Ryder. I think that's more his trip than the 3 miles. Yeah.
Look, Cocktail Divan is 20 to 1 for the Ryanair with Bet365 next year. Done?
That's it. Yeah.
Don is done. Okay. Steve.
So I had a shortlist of 4.
Okay.
But I'm going to narrow it down to 1. I'll go through the shortlist first. Bambino Fever was 20 to 1 for the mares. Hurdle, I thought that was a big price. Obviously won the Champion Bumper 2 years ago. Didn't run to form in the mares novice hurdle, but arguably her collateral form was boosted by Old School Outlaw finishing second. So I think you could probably just write that off. She's a previous point-to-point winner, so I think she'll stay the extended trip. The negative with her was the fact that they fitted her with a first-time tongue tie. She didn't act either on the ground or something wasn't right. So that was just the slight negative of why I've left her out. Jasmine DeVoe's interesting for the Stayers Hurdle next year. He's 16 to 1. You're looking at new blood in this division, aren't you? You had an 11-year-old win. You had an 11-year-old finish third. I think Ballyburn's probably the right favourite for the race, given how he ran this year. But Jasmine DeVoe won a strong Albert Bartlett 2 years ago, missed last season. They were umming and ahhing about whether they would go novice chasing or whether they'd go hurdling. I think because of that setback, they'll stick to hurdling. But because we haven't seen him for a year, that's the reason why I haven't gone with him. Jade de Grugy, I thought, was interesting at 10 to 1 for the mare's chase. They reverted her back to hurdling. And if I think Bambino Fever's got a good chance in the mare's hurdle, I think Jade de Grugy might well go for the mare's chase this year. Dino Blue will be another year older. I thought Jade de Grugy jumped well. Yes, she was beaten in her first 2 starts, but those were by Carla Conti and by the Big Westerner, who are both really talented mares.
Yeah.
We know that she suits Cheltenham. She finished, third in a mare's novice hurdle, behind Golden Ace and Brighter Days Ahead. She finished second behind Lossiemouth in a mare's hurdle. She finished second behind Woodoo in a mare's hurdle. If they let her take her chance in the mare's chase, I thought she was big at 10 to 1. But just because we don't know where she's going, I left her off the list. And I'm glad that Don's mentioned it, because my one bet for next year is Cocktail Divan at 20 to 1 in the Ryanair chase. Smart novice hurdler, like so many of Henry's horses, improved for going, chasing. Second behind Romeo Coolio, that was a really good performance on his debut. Second behind Oscar's brother, looked a bit of a non-stayer that day. Oscar's brother has ran well in the Brown Advisory after that. Then won at Christmas at Leopardstown, jumping brilliantly, beat Kiss Will that day by 21 lengths. He then went on to finish 5th in the Jack Richards. That is a race won previously by Factor File and Galopin des Champs, so it's got a good roll of honour. He then went on to finish 6th in the Brown Advisory himself. If you backed him, you can't believe that he's finished out of the places, but afterwards he was sore, he lost a shoe as well, and I don't think was a full stayer at the trip. Henry de Bromhead has a brilliant record in the Ryanair Chase. If you go back through it, Hartwood won it this year, had finished 2nd the year before, Enviolin had finished 3rd that same year. The year before that, Enviolin had finished 2nd. The year before that, Enviolin had won. So it is a race that Henry de Bromhead does target from a long way out. I think Cocktail Van at 20-1. You're looking at horses that you think have a guaranteed target going forward, and I think that's definitely going to be the way that he goes. So Cocktail de Van, the one bet for me in the Ryanair Chase.
All right, and obviously Don's riding it with you as well, so Cocktail de Van. I'm going to go for Ballyburn in the Stayers Hurdle. I know that Don was maybe suggesting that, Home by the Lee would have outbattled him, but when you look at it, obviously, and I know you rightly point out it's been an old man's race in recent times, but the 1st and 3rd will both be 12 next season. He'll be 9. And when you're looking at some of the new horses that are coming through, maybe the New Lion, he might state still to be, he probably will, but he has to reach that level. And I think, given the way that the season has panned out for him, he had that one really good run behind Tuapu. And then the run last time, at Christmas time, it clearly wasn't him because, his second run of the season, I'm pretty certain that he wasn't right. I think they've said that in as much as, that couldn't have been his run. He was 14 lengths behind Tuapu. He's come back at Cheltenham in the Stayers. And they've said for a long time he's a Stayers hurdle horse, once they've dismissed the chasing aspect of it. And I thought he would have won the Stayers hurdle with a clean run. I think he's 9-1 with Bet365 for the race. I don't see that many new horses coming through. The horse who finished obviously 4th, Cabral de Matin's going to go over fences. So he was my one bet. But I also alluded to Selma de Vary. I hope that she's just getting the one run at around Christmas time and then see her in the county hurdle. And there was part of me that wanted to go with Factor File again for the Gold Cup, but that's more sentiment. And he's the best horse around, and he's not ever going to run in the Gold Cup, is he? So I'm just saying that out loud because I feel like if I don't, I'll suppress that deep-seated emotion. But those are the 3 horses that I would like to see run in those races and hopefully win them. And that's it. I look back and slight look ahead to Cheltenham. It's hard to imagine that we get so excited by it and it's gone. But already I'm now thinking about it next year.
But that's it. The build-up starts 12 months out, doesn't it? And then it intensifies, October, November, then it starts getting more and more intense. But yeah, it's mad, the length of the build-up to just 4 days. But yeah, great 4 days.
Okay. Of course, we've got a lot between now and then. The season's not over yet. That's it for this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Thanks very much to Steve and to Don for joining me on the show. As always, if you liked what you've heard or watched in this or any of our previous episodes, then leave us a kind review on Apple Podcast or in the comments section on YouTube. We're going to take a short pause, but we'll be back to preview the Grand National meeting at Aintree. Until then, bye-bye.